But as I was preparing, I thought, well, first we need to talk about how do we understand what healthy food really is, what a healthy ingredient is. And can we actually decide this is healthy and this is not healthy? Is it that black and white? Because nutrition is very, very complex. So maybe it is or maybe it isn't. As I've been doing research, I read a lot of books, and I came across a really, really wonderful book. And I want to start my lecture by sharing that there are two books that have completely transformed my understanding and my relationship to food and to nutrition. And I think these two books should be obligatory reading for every high school student in every high school around the world. Just as important as it is to read, say, Huckleberry Finn here in the United States, I think both of these books, they are so important for our understanding of our bodies and our relationship to food and how food is essential in our health, that I think everybody should read these two books. The first book is called In Defense of Food. And it's written by an author called Michael Pollan. Michael Pollan really is a journalist. He's not a nutritionist. He's not a doctor. He's a journalist. And he started researching the food industry. And as he researched the food industry, he discovered a lot of things that he felt were very wrong. And so he wrote this book. Actually, his first book was called The Omnivore's Dilemma. And it's basically just a question, okay, we as omnivores, what should we eat? But then that book was such a huge success that people asked, could you write a book telling us with all of your experience and all of your findings what you eat, what you think we should all eat? So then he wrote this second book called In Defense of Food. And it's a fantastic, fantastic book. If you haven't read it, if you haven't heard about it, definitely pick up a copy. It's worth reading. I've read it 3 times, and I'm sure I'll read it many more times. I've lent it to at least a dozen friends. I've given away copies to friends. It's a great, great book, In Defense of Food. The second book I just recently found, and I've been reading through it as I was preparing for this lecture, and it's called Eat to Live. And this one's written by a doctor. He lives in New Jersey, and he is really, really, really interested in nutrition. His focus as a doctor is not curative medicine, but preventive medicine. He has a statement in here which is so shocking to me. When I read it, it just opened my eyes. And it's something that I've known, but having him put it in words so clearly. My father passed away of cancer about 7 years ago, and that's kind of what started me on this path of wanting to really understand nutrition, really discover how food affects my health. And he says, cancer is a disease that is a lot more preventable than treatable. So we should understand cancer as a disease that it's better and we're more effective, we have more knowledge about how to prevent it than how to cure it or treat it. So we're better off gaining knowledge and taking steps to never get cancer than we are to get cancer and then try to cure it. Medicine and the investigations and discoveries that have happened have taken us a ways, and there's fortunately a lot of treatments and a lot of medicines that can help, but we already know how to prevent it. So we should really, really focus on preventing ourselves from getting cancer rather than getting cancer and then having to treat it. So that was one of the But he says so many wonderful things. So Eat to Live, I recommend it. If you have time, if you have interest, those two books.
What's the author's name?
Oh, the author is Joel Fuhrman, and he's a doctor, so MD. Joel Fuhrman, MD. So that's just a side note. So I was thinking about this conundrum. Can we define what healthy eating is? If it was possible to come across an equation as simple as Einstein's equation for energy, E equals mc squared, everybody's heard about that. It's so simple. Could we come up with an equation just as simple to define healthy eating? If we could, that would be great, because then it's easy to remember, it's logical, we can pass it on to other people, we could teach it. So that was my goal. So let's begin by understanding what food gives us. Food supplies our bodies with 3 necessary tools. Of course, it supplies us with lots of other things: enjoyment, the opportunity to socialize and share. But for our body, directly, it gives us 3 tools: calories, nutrients, and fiber. And calories and nutrients get absorbed into our system. They actually go into our bloodstream and to all of our cells, whereas fiber is not absorbed. Fiber enters our body, goes through all of our digestive system, and then goes out. So fiber is never absorbed. It's just a tool to facilitate and help the digestive process, absorption, but it's just as important as calories and nutrients are to our body. So those are the 3 tools. So if we could make a golden equation for healthy eating, it would have to have some kind of combination of these 3 ingredients: calories, nutrients, and fiber. So let's give it a try. I want all of you to take a moment. We're going to introduce ourselves and say hi to one another so we know who we are sitting in each table. But then I'm going to hand out a little post-it notes, and I want everybody to give a try at writing this magical equation, and we'll see what people's options are. So I'm going to help you out. We have 3 variables. We have C for calories, N for nutrients, and F for fiber. So your equation has to include a C, an N, and an F. Possibly more if you want C squared, if you want N times 2, if you want, 3 Fs, whatever you want, but at least 1 C, 1 N, 1 F. Those are our variables. And then any mathematical operator you want to use. So equals to, times, minus, plus, squared, square roots, whatever mathematical operator you want. But we want an equation that is healthy eating equals something, something, something with a C, an N, and an F. Okay? So I'm going to now just take a little break here, and I'm going to hand out these post-it notes. Introduce yourselves to one another. So this was our task. Use C for calories, N for nutrients, and F for fiber as the 3 variables. And then use any mathematical operator to come up with an equation. And I got a lot of wonderful equations. So the first one is 1C plus 3N. So they think nutrients are more important than calories. Good. Plus 1F equals healthy eating. They actually put Superman.
That's safe.
Yeah. So this one, in conclusion, nutrients are more important than calories and fiber. Okay.
The right balance of those.
The right balance, right? 3 to 1 to 1. That's good. This one here said calories plus nutrients times 2 times fiber. So nutrients and fiber together, and then calories aside, but also nutrients are most important in this one. That's good. Here we had
Is that
calories. What?
Is that Superwoman?
No. This one didn't have just healthy eating. This one says calories plus nutrients plus fiber equals healthy eating. So just a good balance of all three. That's good. Healthy eating, nutrients times fiber plus calories. So again, you put nutrients and fiber together and multiply them, and then you add calories. Interesting. So maybe this one tends to indicate that nutrients and fibers are more important, or there should be more of it than fiber, calories. Okay, calories plus nutrients equal fiber. So a new, totally different look on it. Healthy eating, nutrients to the third degree. So nutrients times nutrients times nutrients, plus fiber to the second degree, so fiber times fiber, plus calories equals healthy eating. So nutrients is most important, fiber is second most important, and then calories. That's good. We'll see what's... Then we have nutrients to the third, plus calories times fiber. So that's interesting because the other equations tended to put nutrients and fiber together. This one puts calories and fiber together, but it certainly makes nutrients the most important. Nutrients to the third. Okay, this is the most complex one. This one involves a little bit of calculus. I said any mathematical operator, so calculus is valid. So the function of life. So F parentheses L, the function of life, is equal to 0.5 calories plus 0.3 nutrients plus 0.2 fiber. That's pretty advanced. And then the last one here says calories to the second degree, so we need a lot of calories, times 2 to the nutrients. So calories and nutrients are together, but calories need to be most, plus fiber equals healthy eating. All of these are very, very successful, excellent. What's important is not that you get it right. Oh, because my table had an interesting discussion that I wanted to mention, and that was maybe the golden equation is different for each of us because we each have different needs. Mm-hmm. So if I, for example, started training to run a marathon, my need of calories is going to increase. So maybe my equation, even my golden equation, can change from time to time in my life depending on my needs. That's also an interesting thing. So maybe all of these are right, just at a different point in life for a different person. We'll see. I'm going to share with you the equation I came up with. But it's interesting to think about this. So let's take a closer look at our three variables. These are the three tools that food gives our body in order to function, and hopefully to function well, to have health. Calories, nutrients, and fiber. So let's take a closer look at those. First, calories. Our body uses calories to produce energy for all of our activities. We generally think physical activities, lifting things, riding a bicycle, jogging, going to work, but also mental activities. If I'm sitting at my computer solving a problem or writing a difficult email to my boss, I'm using a lot of calories just for that brain power. Emotional. If you have something really sad happen to you and you sob and sob and sob and sob, afterwards you feel exhausted. Emotion uses a lot of energy in our bodies. Spirituality, the same thing. Conscious, subconscious, unconscious, all of these activities require energy, and our bodies get that energy from calories. So we need a lot of calories on a regular basis to survive. let's take a look at nutrients. Our body uses nutrients to keep our body healthy and functioning correctly. So we see that these three ingredients have different roles. Calories are for energy. Nutrients are for maintenance. It's for keeping our body functioning well, keeping it healthy. So maybe that's why people thought maybe we need more nutrients to keep us healthy, because it's about maintenance, than calories. You know, as long as we have enough calories to keep us going, it's better to have a lot of nutrients to keep us healthy. That's an interesting thought. But this is what nutrients provide our body. And then last, we have fiber. And I mentioned in that earlier slide that fiber never really enters our system. It just goes through the digestive tract and then comes out. Our body doesn't absorb fiber. It never enters our bloodstream. It doesn't circulate to our cells. It doesn't go through the lung and the pancreas and liver and all of those things. It's always just on the outside in our digestive tract. Yeah?
The word absorb would suggest that it goes everywhere.
Right.
So
So calories and nutrients get absorbed. So the fiber helps effective absorption of calories and nutrients.
that does go whole body somewhat.
The calories and nutrients. The way the fiber helps our body absorb it effectively is it breaks fat apart so that the body can take calories from the fat. It releases nutrients and roughens the food around so that the nutrients disperse, and that helps our body take up the nutrients. So fiber is helpful in the process to get calories and nutrients into our system. But this fiber itself never enters our system really. So our body uses fiber to aid in digestion so that we successfully absorb calories and nutrients, and it keeps our digestive tract healthy and clean. So if, for example, you have colon cancer, or cancer in your large intestine or small intestine, or if you have ulcers in your stomach, or if you have reflux at night, those are all problems of the digestive tract. And those could point to the fact that maybe you're not getting enough fiber, because fiber's role is to keep the digestive tract healthy and clean. So these three components have very different roles in our body. Calories are for energy, nutrients are for maintenance, and fiber is solely to aid digestion and keep the digestive tract healthy and clean. So, examples of calories. Where do we get calories from? Carbs. Everybody knows carbs. If you're tired and you eat some pasta, boom, you've got immediate energy. That's actually the fastest way to get energy is carbs. Sugar is considered a carb. Then we have protein. Our body has to work a little bit more to turn protein into energy, but it is possible. And then fats. Our body can also take fat, break it apart, and use it to make energy. Fat is the body's favorite way to store energy. So if we eat a lot and our body doesn't need to use it, it says, well, I'm going to store this energy for later. So it stores the fat so that later when I need it, then I can use it. And actually, in a lot of places, it has a practical purpose. You eat a lot when there's a lot of food available in the spring and the summer and the fall, and you get a little bit plumper. You store fat. not just so that in the winter when you don't have food, your body can survive, but it actually keeps you warmer. So fat on the body is a protective coat that keeps you warmer. So people who live in very, very cold climates in the winter time, they're actually a little bit warmer than skinny people. So there's lots of different purposes, but these are all examples of calories. Our body can use carbs, proteins, and fats to produce energy. Now let's take a look at examples of nutrients. The two best known are vitamins and minerals. Vitamins are involved in a lot of different functions in our body. The immune system, a lot of the hormones react or are built from vitamins. Our blood levels, how much sugar or salt or all of these components, how much there is in the blood, and how the cells take these nutrients from the blood. Vitamins are essential in all of those functions. Minerals are the same thing. The most common one that we all know of is salt, sodium, but all iron and magnesium, all of these are also involved in all of the functions of the body, in sleeping, in how we breathe, in digestion, in whether we feel hungry or not, tired or not, whether we're in a good mood or not, our reproductive functionings, all of these things. So vitamins, minerals, and then phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are a plethora of elements that we have just begun to discover and understand. As they started doing research and discovering, they first said, oh, there's 1,000 phytochemicals. And we don't know but 10 of them, but we think there's 1,000. And then as they discovered more, they said, we think there's 10,000 phytochemicals. Because we've discovered more. Now we have 163. We think there's 10,000. And now as they continue to study them and discover, they say, there's probably like 100,000. Now we've registered maybe 13,000 phytochemicals, and we kind of understand 6 or 7 of them and how they really function. But we know 13,000, and we think there's 100,000. And 10 years from now, they're going to say there's 10 million phytochemicals. So it's a very, very complex thing, and each phytochemical has some purpose that we still don't understand. Some of them we've begun to understand, but it's a very, very complex thing. Nutrition in general is a huge science that we're never going to fully understand. There's just too many variables and factors. But these are nutrients that our body gets from food: vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals. And then examples of fiber. There's 2 types of fiber. There's soluble fiber, and then there's non-soluble fiber. And basically the only difference is soluble fiber, if you put it in water, it dissolves. And it makes that water into like a jelly. So if you've ever used, say, gelatin, that's kind of the effect that soluble fiber has in water. It just makes the water kind of thick. And then non-soluble is like if you took hay and you put it in water, it doesn't dissolve, it's still just hay. It can get a little bit softer, but if you rough it around, it's still just hay. So that's non-soluble fiber. And the difference is, how it affects the digestive system. And so this non-soluble fiber is basically just like a big brush that just scrapes along our digestive system and keeps it clean. It says, oh, look at this piece of cancer that we've got to get out of the body. Let's take that with us. And so this non-soluble fiber traps all of this bad stuff and takes it with it. And then at the end, when you go to the bathroom, about 60%, I think, is just fiber, if it's solid. If you're not eating enough fiber, then what comes out is liquid. Or if you're sick, but if you're eating well and you're eating a lot of fiber, a lot of what keeps that poop together is just fiber. It enters the system as vegetables, scrapes the digestive system, keeps it clean, comes out. Whereas the soluble, it actually dissolves and it becomes this jelly, and what it does is it aids so that certain elements don't enter the bloodstream so quickly, like fat or like sugar. Because if a lot of sugar enters our bloodstream quickly, then we get this sugar rush, and then our body has to produce a lot of insulin to bring down the sugar level in the bloodstream, and that's not so healthy. So soluble fiber just traps all of these things, fats and sugar and nutrients, so that it enters the body at a slower pace. So that's how it helps in digestion. Those are the two types of fibers. So nutrition, being such a complex subject with so many factors, is it possible to simply and clearly define what healthy eating is? Is it possible? Or is it, as we discussed, just so different that maybe it's different for every person, or different for different periods of in life, or depending on how healthy or sick you are, or your physical activity? So is it possible to just clearly define an equation for healthy eating? And my conclusion is yes. I think one can simply define healthy eating. And this is the equation that I came up with. And I'm not going to say it's absolutely right, that you should go preach Andres' golden equation. No. But this is what I came up with, and I am pretty certain that if you follow this, you're going to have all the energy you need, you're going to give your body enough nutrients to keep it healthy and functioning well, and you're going to get enough fiber to process what you need and to keep your digestive tract healthy and clean. So the equation is health equals N over C times F. So what's the relationship between N and C and F? First, I'd like us to look at these two, N over C. So what's the relationship between nutrients and calories in my equation? So health increases if I increase which of these two? Let's just think of a mathematical equation. So let's say that we've got a variable x here, and then we've got 1 and 1. What does x equal? 1. So if I increase the nutrients, 2 over 1, what does x equal? 2. So now I've increased the health by increasing the nutrients. So what I'm telling you here is that the more nutrients you get, the higher your health is going to be. So I'm saying we need as many nutrients as possible. Now what am I saying about calories? Again, let's take a mathematical example. X equals 1 over 1. If I increase the calories to 2, what is x now? 0.5, half. So by increasing the calories, I've decreased the health. So what I'm trying to say here is that we should be eating less calories and more nutrition. But it's also interesting that they are together. So they influence each other. And the reason is, when we eat, we can't really separate calories from nutrients. I can't say I'm going to eat a banana and just take the calories from it. Your body gets the calories from the banana and the nutrients from the banana. They're tied together. We can't separate them. So they're intertwined, inseparable, but there is a relationship. And you actually can find foods that have higher nutrients levels and less calories. I'm going to take a very, very simple example with two foods, an apple and a donut. So, which one has more nutrients, the apple or the donuts? The apple, obviously, it has a lot of vitamins, it has minerals, it has phytochemicals, and all of these good things. And how many calories does a standard apple have?
80.
80 to 100, let's say. Depends on the size of the apple, depends on the type of the apple, but let's say 80 calories for an apple. And let's say it's about this big. So I'm getting a lot of nutrients, I'm getting 80 calories. Now let's take a look at the donuts. How many nutrients am I getting from a donut?
0. No, 0.
You could say 0. It's possible if they added some salt to the recipe of the donuts, you could be getting some minerals. Or maybe it's fortified with iron. So maybe, or they've added vitamin D. So it's possible that there are some nutrients, but not much. And if there are nutrients, they're processed nutrients. They're like the tablet that you take. They're not just from nature. So the body has a harder time to absorb these processed nutrients. So the nutrient value of the donut is very little. How many calories in a donut? 300. I haven't checked recently, but let's say 200, just for simplicity's sake. So let's say the apple.
If you have the chocolate with
It depends if you have the chocolate with the sprinkles.
powdered sugar.
Right, exactly. But let's say 200 and the apple had 100. So it has twice as many calories, and the apple has tons more nutrients. So which of these two foods, not taking into account fiber yet, just with the nutrient calorie equation, gives us a better health?
Apple.
The apple. Because we're getting a lot of nutrients for less calories. So we could eat 2 apples for the price of 1 donut, calorie-wise. Now we're getting 200 calories from apples and 200 calories from a donut, but we're also getting twice as many nutrients than we were from eating 1 apple. So the amount of nutrients in relationship to 1 donut, 2 apples to 1 donut, is huge now. If it was already big from 1 apple to 1 donut, now we have 2 apples full of vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals. So you see how this relationship works. You want a lot of nutrition for as little calories as possible. And it's not that we want to eat little calories. You know, a male of my age, relationship, nutrition over calorie, with as much fiber as possible. So it's just those 3 things. Even though nutrition is tremendously complex, we've simplified it to 3 things. So I'm walking down the grocery store and I see a Snickers bar. And I pick up the Snickers bar and I think, how good is this for me if I'm just worried about optimal health? Well, this little thing has a lot of calories, 260 calories per Snickers bar maybe. How much nutrition does it have? On the back it'll say, maybe it has magnesium, and maybe it has, I don't know, something else, vitamin D or something. So it has some nutrients, that's good. And fiber, maybe the nuts that are in the Snickers bar have some fiber. So maybe it has a little bit of fiber. Okay. So I go on, I put it in my cart, and I move on, and then there is a watermelon. And I pick it up and I think, how good is this for me if I'm just thinking about optimal health? Does it have nutrients? A lot of nutrients. So many that I couldn't even name them all. Does it have calories? Yes. How many calories in a whole watermelon?
1,000.
I don't know for sure, but maybe as much as a little Snickers bar. I don't know for sure. We'd have to look that up. But maybe. And how about fiber? Lots of fiber. Lots of fiber. So which one is better for me?
Watermelon.
The watermelon. So without having to think about, is this fat-free? Does this have the right percentage amount of sodium per day for me? Does this, all of those things that just boggle our minds. We have a much simpler equation. How many nutrients does this have per calorie, and does it have fiber? And that'll tell you if you're eating for optimal health or not. So when you want to eat for optimal health, and this should be a norm for each daily meal, you should ask yourself, how does this ingredient rate in our golden equation? Is there a golden equation for food enjoyment? Enjoyment equals yum, yum, yum. That's simple, right? Actually, it's not that simple. I also think that there's 3 factors involved in food enjoyment. Just like we had nutrients, calories, and fiber, I think there are 3 factors. There's immediate pleasure. I'm eating this chocolate mousse, and it's giving me pleasure. That's that immediate pleasure. We're going to call it Yum 1. Then we have the medium-term pleasure, which I'm going to call Yum 2, Y2. And that is, if I eat 1 portion of chocolate mousse, and I enjoy that pleasure, then tomorrow, I wake up in the morning and I think, that chocolate mousse was good. And so I'm having medium-term pleasure. But if I had thought, this chocolate mousse is so good, I'm going to have 5 portions. And so I've increased my immediate pleasure because it wasn't just good once, it was good 5 times. But then I wake up in the morning, and instead of thinking, that chocolate mousse was good, I think, where is the bathroom? And you probably have a stomach ache, and maybe a little bit of headache because your body's dehydrated, too much sugar. So you've decreased the medium-term pleasure by increasing the immediate pleasure. So there's a relationship here. It's not as simple as just, if it's good, let's eat it. Maybe it's good in the moment, but is it going to be good for you in the midterm? Are you going to enjoy the medium-term pleasure? And then there's a 3rd factor, which I call Yum 3, and that's the long-term pleasure. So if I like chocolate mousse so much that I eat it every day, and I don't want to decrease the medium-term pleasure, so I eat 1 portion of chocolate mousse every day. My digestive tract can handle it. I don't get sick to my stomach. I'm not having to run to the bathroom or everything. But every day, I eat that 1 portion of chocolate mousse. And at the end of the year, I weigh 10 pounds more than I should. And after 5 years, that starts really hurting my knees because I'm carrying 10 pounds extra every day. Walking up those stairs, it's like having a backpack with some bricks every day. And so the long-term pleasure, 5 years from now, my knees are hurting all the time. Every day my knees hurt. So I've decreased my long-term pleasure. In 20 years, maybe those chocolate mousses add up to lead me to get cancer, and I die, and I can't see my grandchildren grow up. So I've decreased my long-term pleasure by increasing my immediate pleasure. So there is a relationship here. It's not that we shouldn't have immediate pleasure. That's important. But I think that medium-term pleasure and long-term pleasure are just as important as this immediate pleasure. So I've come up with an equation for the golden rule for eating for pleasure. And that should be Y1, our immediate pleasure, should not outweigh, it needs to be smaller or equal to our medium-term pleasure and our long-term pleasure added together. So I shouldn't eat so much so that I enjoy it immediately, that I'm hurting my medium-term pleasure, or my long-term pleasure. It needs to be balanced. I need to find enjoyment immediately, but in balance so that I'm not hurting myself tomorrow morning or in 5 years. So when you want to eat for enjoyment, and I bring this up because that's important too. It's important that we eat for health, absolutely. But it's also important from time to time that we eat for enjoyment. If you're invited over to a friend's house and he just got married and they're celebrating, don't judge those delicious Swedish potatoes and think, I don't know, the nutrient count on those potatoes in proportion to the calorie count and the fiber, I'm not going to eat them. No. Enjoy those yummy potatoes with cream all over them and cheese. But do it in proportion. So when we want to eat for enjoyment, which we should do once in a while on a special occasion, you should ask yourself, what brings me the most complete enjoyment? Not just immediate satisfaction, but medium-term enjoyment and long-term enjoyment. So should I eat those 5 Snickers bars? No, I should eat 1 or half. Because it gives me immediate satisfaction, but it's not sacrificing that medium-term enjoyment or that long-term enjoyment. So now that we've talked about food and our relationship to food and food's relationship to health, I ask myself, why are the majority of us overfed? That means that we're eating too much, that we're carrying around excess food on our bodies for a later date, and still undernourished. And that means that our body doesn't have the nutrients it needs to keep it functioning well, doesn't get the fiber necessary to keep our digestive tract clean and functioning well. Why does this happen? And I think the answer is because we don't really pay attention to our equation. If we understand this equation and the relationship that nutrients have to calories have to fiber, and if we use that to think and choose wisely, then we wouldn't be overfed and undernourished, but rather optimally nourished and fed just right. So that's my little golden nugget for this week. Next class, we're going to be building a shopping list for healthy eating. Now that we understand what we need to think as we're walking down the aisles of the supermarkets and how every single ingredient I pick up, I can evaluate without advanced mathematics of understanding grams per calorie and fat percentage to body weight, and no, just 3 equations. How much nutrition does this thing have? What's the amount of calories for all of this nutrition? And does it include fiber? Because all 3 of those are important. We need calories, we need nutrition, and we need fiber. If we're eating something that does not include one of those 3, and most of the time it's the fiber that's missing, and that's what makes processed food unhealthy. Because some processed food has nutrients, but it's missing the fiber. They've taken out the fiber altogether. All processed food is basically fiberless. And so it's unhealthy because of that. So now that we understand how we can properly judge every ingredient in the supermarkets, now we're ready to build this shopping list for healthy eating. And that will be next month, October 11th. Thank you.